I want to speak a little bit about coming home to yourself. So, for a lot of healing journeys out there, for a lot of different practices of moving through things, different ways of figuring out who you really are, it can often be focused on appearances, on the outside, um, on attaining new skills or adding on to things. And what I'd like to speak a little bit about is how I've found it to be the opposite, that really, really works profoundly. It's the shedding of layers and the inward journey, which I know most people agree with that, but it's one thing to say those things and believe them and then actually really do it and put it into practice. Because the only way is through complete surrender and acceptance of what is, letting go of all the layers, everything we're holding on to. Also the things we don't even know we're holding on to because we've held them for so long since before we started even being conscious of our emotional life and what it means to hold on to things that aren't like in our hands but inner things. Because a lot of it is shaped in the early years, right? In early childhood, and often we were more aware of the stuff we pick up on later on, or stuff that was passed on to us from our parents. We start learning about that, and then we get to the layers where we didn't even know it was there. So I really believe that coming home to yourself means visiting every part of yourself, really going on. That's what I believe inner journey means, is like really discovering every part of yourself, not just the sides that you like or that other people celebrate, but also all the kind of shadowy parts, that stuff that might have not been looked at in a while, that might have some spider webs and some dust and like different things coming out of it. It might be a little bit scary to go in there. You can think of it as a house. If you have maybe 3 stories, maybe you often spend time on the ground floor, in the living room, in the kitchen. Maybe you have a second floor where it's a guest room or something. Not that I've ever lived in a house like this, but just to use the metaphor. And then maybe there's the basement, and no one's been down there for many, many years. And it's there, and you wish you could use it for something, but it kind of smells, it's scary, the light doesn't really work, it hasn't been tidied up or cleaned or organized in ages. Sometimes you hear weird sounds coming from down there, like weird creaks, and the wind kind of goes through in a kind of creepy way. So the inner journey, it can often be romanticized and made out to be just this really light and pretty and kind of floaty experience. But to me, I've found that the really deep work and really deep letting go of things comes when you go down in the basement, because that's where you need to force yourself to go a little bit. So the basement, that's where I really feel like a lot of the work that we need to do as a collective, as a global community, as individuals, as families, groups of friends, all kinds of groups of people you could think of. That's what we really need to do. That's what's holding us back the most, because we so quickly want to move on to the shinier parts, the prettier parts, the parts of us that we get validated a lot from other people, that we like to show off, that we like ourselves. And you'll find that some of the basement stuff you'll come to love the most, actually, because there's deep empathy for yourself, for different versions of yourself, of different places in your life, of your inner child that's still left there in many ways, in different points in your life. And I really do believe that you are the one who can liberate those children within yourself, those earlier versions, young adults, whatever age you are. You're the one they're looking for. Because they're all stuck there because they didn't have the person they needed at the moment. They didn't have the reaction to what happened to them that they needed in their surroundings. Because like Gabor Mate says, it's not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. And I can speak for that myself, just knowing that even with terrible things happening to you, it's often actually the response or the lack of response or lack of protection from your immediate surroundings that can freeze you in that moment and cause it to be a wound that you bring with you and cause you to be kind of stuck in that. Because that's what our triggers really are, is that it's old stuck stuff that hasn't been resolved that comes up in us again. So every time we bring out that like trigger reaction, it's actually us trying to avoid going through that again, or trying to stand up for ourselves, but we don't really do it consciously all the time. But if you look at it from a more positive view, it's actually trying to seek justice, trying to make those moments right. And if our surroundings had done that for us, we probably would have let it go pretty easily. Like even really, really painful things that can happen to us, we will be able to release with a certain degree of lightness if we go right into an embrace of people who completely have our back and who love us and who nurture us and stand up for us. Imagine those moments in your life where you went through something really hard or someone really, really hurt you. Imagine if the immediate moment after was just the best people you could imagine or you already have in your life, like just doing and saying exactly what you needed in that moment, having all the support, all the justice, all the empathy, the comfort, the nurturing that you needed, the truth in that moment, and then think of how it would feel to you after. You would probably let it go, because usually we hold on to things because there's still some stuff that needs to be done with that moment. Because usually we understand the moment very clearly, but if our surroundings don't respond in a way that seems like they understand the moment, then it's like a shift in reality. It's like everything becomes a little crooked. And that's what we bring into our relationships, situations in our life after that, is that little bit of crookedness where something wasn't quite right. And it needs to be fixed. And until we learn that we can't always count on the people around us to really do exactly what we need at the time, but we can actually be those people for ourselves. We can actually be that mom, that older brother, that friend, that partner, and it can just be, it doesn't even have to have a category. It can just be that stronger person we can lean on, that more mature, wise, warm, strong, courageous person to lean on. We can be that. So you can almost imagine taking a time machine. And the great part about this visualization or doing this inner kind of travel, is that it's healing to be both people in that scenario. Like I'll be completely teared up and deeply moved, both when I imagine myself being the person who goes back and says those things to 5-year-old me, 10-year-old me, 15-year-old me, and so on. Just as moved by being that person as when I step into the little boy I was, and I see that person come to me and do those things, respond in that way, say those things that you need at the moment. And it doesn't even have to be that you're given all the answers, because you probably won't understand them at that time in your life. But just someone saying, I see you and I see that this isn't right, or I see how you're fighting through this alone, and it's going to be okay. And it might not be okay for a long time, but it's going to be okay. And you'll find a way to become the people you needed to be there for you. You can become that. And it's such a incredible, meaningful meeting, that meeting between you and yourself in different times and spaces and personalities, or kind of flows of your being. It's beautiful, and you can go there in every moment. All you have to do is just remember and let go of everything that might hold you back from doing that. And you always want to go there, because even the resistance to doing that is actually you kind of stepping into your younger self without knowing it. So because you're so focused on not going back into your inner child, in that version of yourself, in that time in your life, what you're really doing is actually stepping in to that child's emotions, or maybe you've never really left them. And what you're scared of doing is letting go of them, or revisiting them from the outside in the person who gives you what you need. So we carry it on in ourselves because we're still looking for truth, justice, support, empathy, warmth, being seen fully as we are. That's all we're always looking for. You can do that for yourself. And that's where, once we start doing that with ourselves and do that with each other, really see each other, I believe that healing is collective. It's something we have to do together. But I also know that the way we show up for other people, the way we see them, is usually the way we have already seen ourselves. So if you're someone who really sees other people, and it's something you hear a lot, like, you really understand me, you really see me. It might be people who seem quite different from you, or who's had completely different experiences, but still you really tend to see them and understand them in a way. I believe that's because you've already been to a lot of different places in yourself. Because the experiences might have been completely different, but maybe the dynamic, or maybe what you needed in that moment, or maybe what you had to become and pick up of tools and strength or courage in that moment, maybe that's the same as what you see in that other person in that moment. So that's, to me, is the beauty of our existence, is that we are completely the same and completely connected on a deeper level, all come from the same life source. And then on the surface levels, we're different sprouts with different flowers and petals and blossoms and branches that kind of move out and make us who we are in our beautiful individuality. A lot of people have it upside down, or live in the opposite way, where it's like trying to make all the flowers or the outside look exactly the same as anyone else. Our interest, our looks, our personality traits, our actions, our way of speaking, our habits and stuff. And then on the deeper level, we think, oh, I'm the only one who's weird in this way. I'm the only one who feels like this. I'm the only one who's gone through feeling alone in this certain way. Or so we hide those parts of ourselves. And it's really when we flip that around and really become the same and realize that we've always been the same as everyone else on a deeper level. Once we really go there and accept that, that's when we can really sprout and blossom in different ways and celebrate our own individualities on the higher levels, on the surface levels. So we will be able to express ourselves differently and feel okay about that. We'll be able to have different interests and have it be an inspiration to people, or be a source of learning, or we'll look different and be fine with that and celebrate that. So I really believe that those things are all connected. That's the end goal of feeling that deep connection and oneness on a deepest level. And then as we move up, it's more and more different branches, flowers and colors and sprouts and fruits and whatever you want to imagine that comes out of it. But at the root level, at the stem level, a lot of trees look similar at the base. I know a lot of them look different too, but you could pick up like if you make a bouquet of flowers, maybe a lot of them will look kind of similar at the base, but completely different in the top. So depending on how you how you flip them, how you see them. So this is an invitation to maybe see things in the opposite way, if that's the way you've been living your life, and it's something that we're encouraged to do, I think, because that's how everything has been set up. That's what has been ingrained in us, to see it in that way. But really, like, finding some of the courage to go down into that basement and really accept what's there. That's the first move. Whatever you find, just be okay with it. Then you can start to kind of get familiar with it. Spend some time there. Go through all the grief, the anger, the resentment, the bitterness, the shame, the guilt, all of it. Really go through it. The sadness, the regret, because you have to move through those things to really let go of them. Which is a very ironic thing, that a lot of people who they might be triggered by you going through your basement, because it'll remind them of their basement. Or maybe you share a basement and maybe you just have different rooms in the same basement if it's family members, or but really moving through that's the way to actually let it go and find freedom. Because to me, being in a state of love and authenticity with who you are is a state of freedom. And that comes from deep truth and deep recognition of truth. And we'll all have different truths and different ways of viewing truth, but really seeing everything, surrendering to it as you find it, accepting it, then you can start to let it go, and then you can live in your whole house of yourself. And you'll come to realize that maybe the basement will be the proudest room for you to show to other people once you really, really have been there a lot and feel comfortable with it. Because what courage and strength it takes to go down there again and again and visit all the monsters who live there, or that you think live there, because a lot of them will be projections or like those kind of shadow monsters on the wall that we used to make as kids with our hands and stuff, you know, in front of a light. There's this clip from The Wizard of Oz. I never really watched that movie, but there's this clip I always really like to use for a metaphor for shadow work, and for it can both be for yourself, it can also be for people who have really hurt you in your life, people who may appear narcissistic and scare you, hurt you in different ways, where it's a big projection of this big scary creature with this scary voice, and it's a lot of effects and smoke, and you know, and then you come to see it's just this little fragile elder man behind the curtain, who's making this huge projection to seem powerful and scary. And once you really look what's underneath there, it's just pretty fragile and tender and vulnerable, and just kind of scared themselves. And that's what you'll see in a lot of these monsters, is what's underneath it. So let's go visit our basements and go there again and again until we feel comfortable living our full selves, and then we can show up that way and really see other people, and then we can create beautiful experiences and relationships and just good energy and build good things together. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I really hope that this kind of stream of thoughts did something for you, or something you found a little pebble of something you might be able to bring with you and use in a good way. So thank you so much. Thank you.